Specifically, Loki episode 3. We're gonna talk about Loki episode 3. Be careful. Spoilers ahead. Again, this isn't any real therapy. So please don't
Today, we'll run down on Loki episode 3, so heads up, there will be spoilers.
If you haven't seen any of them, there's going to be probably spoilers related to more of episode 2 at the end as well. And a couple theories I have that are kind of being reinforced now, more and more. So episode 3, Loki, Disney Plus, probably one of the better productions Marvel Studios has done in general, and that's, I mean, across the board, all the films. Characters are fantastic, acting's fantastic. We now know this variant of Loki is Lady Loki, or as we've come to find out, Sylvie, which is kind of interesting because there's a character in Marvel called Enchantress, and at the end of episode 2, Loki and the variant of Loki, the female variant, Sylvie, he ends up chasing after her because she has what the Time Variance Authority have, this machine that allows them to travel through timelines, multiverses, whatever. So he chases after her, and essentially they end up in the year 2077 on a planet that's about to be destroyed because their moon is blowing apart. The reason they end up there is she purposefully is picking locations where the timeline is about to end, which is how she avoids detection from the Time Variance Authority. Because she's not really messing with that time stream, as in anything she does will have no repercussions because it's the end of that society. So by talking to someone or doing anything, if it's all going to be blown away within the hours, doesn't really have any effect overall. So, and Loki kind of figures this out in episode 2, and that's how they're able to track her down, is that she is using areas like Pompeii, for instance, to hide out while planning her next move against the Time Variance Authority. And since they only can detect when the timelines are being affected in an improper way, I guess, you know, like a planet's going to explode. Supposedly it's all predetermined, so if she shows up there and then disappears before it explodes, nothing ever happened. The planet's just gone. So kind of a cool concept, how to hide yourself in the multiverse. Excuse me. And then essentially we get to see the power set of this version of Loki, or Sylvie. It's pretty cool. She's got the little horns that Loki wore, then he even has a chipped one off, which is kind of a nod to the comic books. There was a the art was terrible, but there was a Loki book that had Loki and Madam Loki, Lady Loki. I don't know anything about it. I just saw images of it when I was looking up who this version was. I knew that there was a female version of Loki that is canon to Marvel and in the comic books. Just wasn't sure who she was. So anyway, did a little research, found a couple different comics, but this seemed like it was made for probably younger audience or something. Doesn't matter. Anyway, they are essentially, well, Loki is trying to convince Sylvie that they should partner up, and Sylvie is pretty much the cockiness of Loki when he originally shows up with the Time Variance Authority. Seemingly better at martial arts and fighting in general. Her power set somewhat different. We haven't learned much about how she came up. We don't even know if Sylvie's Asgardian. I mean, Loki talks about Freya and stuff like that, and we don't really get, doesn't seem like much of an emotional attachment to even those names. She hasn't mentioned having a brother named Thor. So, I don't know, but it's kind of funny when they're fighting each other. They did a really good job with the actress they picked. I can't pronounce her name. It's, again, not good with I'm not good with language in general. Stumble on my words, so I'm not going to try it. But the actress that plays Lady Loki, or Sylvie, does a really good job with Tom Hiddleston. I don't know if that's just Tom Hiddleston in general, because Owen Wilson was fantastic with him as well. Obviously, Chris Hemsworth, he just does a good job bouncing off other people. Very charming. I mean, the characters are fantastic on here. The sets are done so well. And we get more of kind of the cosmic scale of things and a little more introduction to this multiverse stuff, which is why I believe some of my ideas or theories about where it's going and how it ties into the overall timeline for the next upcoming films is probably not too far off. One of the ones that I posited was that Kang the Conqueror would have something to do with this, or some introduction of him would be a part of the Loki show, or as a result of whatever's going on. We end episode 2 with Sylvie dropping all these essentially bombs that erase timelines, as I mentioned in my last review, that when put in a specific timeline or multiverse or universe, erase it if things are not fitting how the timekeepers have preordained them to fit. So when a variant goes to an area like Sylvie and attacks, it automatically starts changing the timeline, so they erase it to make sure it doesn't affect the overall harmony of the multiverse. Well, at the end of episode 2, she starts planting all these bombs with their own little like time travel devices, which is what the Time Variance Authority uses to travel the multiverse time, and has them all preset, and then sets these little bombs on them, and boom, they all drop at the same time, and you see that the time streamline start to just splinter off like crazy, which to me would go into the Multiverse of Madness, because now we've got the multiverse going kind of mad, with all these variations being created as a result of what she's done. And then a few times during episode 3, they zoom in on this statue very specifically, who I believe is their version of Kang the Conqueror, who may be one of the timekeepers, which then made me kind of think, are the timekeepers doing the job that they are doing because they believe it's right, or are they being controlled on a bigger scale? I don't know. So if Kang the Conqueror does end up being one of the timekeepers, which I don't think he is in the comic books at all, I think he's just Reed Richards' son, super powerful, able to travel the multiverse in time, basically like a god. But it will be interesting to see. So that part, I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. As far as how it ties into Doctor Strange and Thor, started thinking more about what they were saying. Jane Foster, Natalie Portman's character, was going to be in the new Love and Thunder, and I believe she's going to take on the mantle of Thor. That could very easily be a multiverse edition or variant of Thor, potentially, which would explain how she's able to get the powers, yada yada. I might be wrong about this, but if this all is going to be about the multiverses and cosmic scale and have the Celestials and the Eternals, it would seem to fit, especially like if you throw in Kang the Conqueror, if you do bring the Celestials in. So I could see the next Guardians Volume 3 easily tying into what's going on with the show. I mean, technically, they could even bring in the mutant world, which would be kind of cheap in my opinion, but they got to do it somehow. They haven't had a single mutant yet, and Disney acquired Fox. Eventually, we're going to have mutants in our world. So they could probably do this by explaining how the multiverse got all messed up and now there's mutants or something. I don't know. Anyway, just another guess. But episode 3, Loki and Sylvie are like fighting each other. He's trying to convince her that they should team up because he also wants to stop the timekeepers or destroy them or whatever, so he can be free of the burden of being forced to be an indentured servant to the Time Variance Authority. And Sylvie, this version of Loki, is pretty much the version of Loki we get from the original Avengers or Thor. A very cocky, very much seemingly uncaring version, but probably has more depth to her than we're shown at first, which we get with Loki as well. He's not really an evil person, he's just hurt on the inside. But so they start fighting. She has a different power set than him, and Sylvie is actually a character in Marvel that becomes Enchantress. So it's kind of interesting. They're kind of blending two characters together, possibly. And then Lady Loki, again, that's total canon. I love the little crown she has with the cracked off horn, because that's actually the design of the character in one of the comic series that has both Loki and Lady Loki, or Madam Loki. So by hiding out on these worlds that are dying and about to, be vaporized, they end up in the year 2077 on a planet that's about to be destroyed by a moon exploding. And I believe, Loki ends up stealing the machine from her that allows them to travel the dimensions. And the battery's dead, so they have to recharge it. Is the whole kind of plot of this, and it sounds kind of stupid, but it's actually a pretty fantastic episode. So they fight. They kind of have like similar attack styles, even though she's probably a better fighter overall. And then again, different power set. Loki creates illusions. She does it through people's mind and can control them, which is pretty cool. But kind of similar ideas, except Loki couldn't do, he had to use the Mind Stone, or what he thought, the Tesseract at the time, to be able to do that, whereas this is just her power set. So, and we also don't know if she had a similar upbringing as Loki. He grew up in Asgard, obviously, as the son's king, or the son of a king, Thor's brother. We don't really get too much info on Sylvie, so that's still kind of a mystery. He brings up his mother, Freya, and she's like, she never met her mother, she died, so I don't know if in her multiverse, if she is considered a god, quote unquote. I don't know if Thor exists in her multiverse or who it is, but if they were to bring in, these variants and these multiverse ideas, it would explain, again, the Jane Foster being Thor in the new Love and Thunder. They could very easily twist that around. Since now we've got a female Loki, we could easily have a female Thor. Yeah, there's just some interesting ideas going on here. It ends with essentially their last hope of getting off the planet is this ship they're going to try to steal energy from, because it needs like massive amounts of energy to recharge this thing, which makes sense. It lets you travel time and space and cut through to different multiverses. But seems like everything's kind of just going to shit as they try to do this. It was more of a fun episode, very well paced, but fast paced. It went by so quick. So far, I'm loving it. I highly recommend anyone to watch it. If you weren't a fan of WandaVision or Falcon the Winter Soldier, I think you'll love Loki if anything about that character interests you. If you liked anything about Thor or Guardians or any of those, I think Loki is more your dig, I guess. I personally loved WandaVision, and I thought Falcon and the Winter Soldier were fantastic. So I think Loki did a better job of getting you drawn in like immediately. I think that's a lot of people, attention spans are so short these days. I'm guessing most of you have already clicked off by now, so as proof of that. Yeah, it'll be cool to see where this goes. Is she a variant of Loki that's being controlled by the Enchantress? Is she Enchantress version 2? Because a lot of the stuff they tell us that is allowing these theories and things to come to my brain is only because I read the comics. So again, stopped reading Marvel, most of Marvel, really writer dependent at this point, but most of it probably stopped reading, I don't know, around 18. So I'm pretty behind the times. I did read like Civil War and, bigger things, Infinity Wars, blah, blah, blah. Just complete sets though. So I don't know a ton about what's going on in Marvel lately, and I don't really care. I kind of enjoy more adult themed writing, let's say. I'm going to be talking about Gideon Falls very shortly. If you've watched my videos on Sweet Tooth, Jeff Lemire is like my favorite writer right now. Probably in my top 3, I would say, if not one of the best that I enjoy. But he very much, he's like a novelist. It's not a comic book, The way his philosophical undertones, the way he develops characters, it's another level. Comics from the 90s are gonna just be forgotten compared to some of the stuff coming out today. Anyway, my point being, if there's ever a reason to get Disney Plus, Loki is definitely that reason. And on top of that, you can go back and watch WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I personally thought were both fantastic. I think some people were kind of iffy about WandaVision at the start. I really liked its way of doing like each generation of sitcom television. And then other people were disappointed on the second half when it kind of breaks down into more Avengers world, which I was pretty stoked to see, like the white Vision, which also is canon. I thought that was really cool. So that gives us a reason to bring Vision back, because technically there was a rebuilt version of Vision that I could see coming and being part of the Avengers, but it's kind of like Vision minus the soul, I guess. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble here, so I'm just going to keep this one sweet and short. Definitely check it out. It's worth watching. I'm not going to tell you the end, obviously. Just slight little giveaways, but it's a fun show so far. I mean, again, fantastic cinematography, great characters, great writing, and this last episode for me, I was like, wait, it's done already? Like, what? Because the pacing is just boom, 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 boom. And even the other ones that were not like action-oriented the entire run of the episode, you know, you watch it and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I want more, please, please. So, as far as that is concerned, they're doing a great job of making me want to come back and watch some more, which is important, obviously. It doesn't seem like there's just filler episodes at this point. The only other shows I would compare it to would be like The Mandalorian. I love every episode of The Mandalorian. I did a fantastic job and redeemed Star Wars in my eyes. I wish we could erase the last 3 Star Wars, pretend they never existed, just have The Mandalorian continue on after the events of the Death Star exploding for the second time. So that would be a great example of less is more. Like, yeah, they had CGI and cool shootouts and stuff, but it was a lot more grounded. You know, it was like a spaghetti western. Loki is kind of doing the same thing. It's, yes, there's like cosmic stuff going on, but they're not constantly focused on, you know, these massive fights and, you know. Marvel seems to have a terrible job with their bad guys up until Thanos, who still gets killed anyway. So their only other bad guy was Loki, who got killed, who then becomes a good guy, so he's kind of a anti-hero. And apparently Sylvie is also kind of an anti-hero in the comics. Not really bad, not really good, trying to do good. Just in their way. You know, Punisher, great example. So, yeah, that's what I got. I really dig what's going on with this show. I'm excited to see where it takes us. I'm excited to see if any of my theories are correct, or questions that I've thrown out there, or ideas. I think we will be seeing Kang the Conqueror. I really do believe that. There is one pretty cool thing too that we find out in episode 3. This is a major spoiler, but it won't ruin the episode. So if you don't want to listen to it, don't cut it off right now. Everybody that works for the Time Variance Authority is a variant themselves, and they don't even know it. So that's an interesting part right there. So already it gets me wondering, is the Time Variance Authority actually an organization that thinks they're doing good, but they're actually being controlled on a, you know, like on a different scale again? We've got the Timekeepers, these epic beings, and we've got the Time Variance Authority, who work to keep the multiverses flowing how they're supposed to be, which is throwing out the idea of free will, which I talked about before. Sam Harris wrote a book called Free Will, how pretty much everything we do, we have already made our decision on, even when we think like, oh, I'm going to sit down. No, I'm going to stand up. No, I'll sit down. They can literally look at your brain under MRI or whatever the fuck, scan your brain. They can know what decision you're going to make before you do. So, are we truly creatures with free will? We're just doing things we're pre-programmed to do? Is everything predetermined? I don't know. If there's no free will, that would like totally make it potentially possible that we're all just running a simulation and we're just following our part, and what we believe to be free will is just to allow us to accept this universe we're in without freaking the fuck out. I don't know. So it posits some really interesting thoughts and ideas, like if you can't consciously choose what you're going to do and everything's predetermined, what is running that and who's controlling all of that? What's the purpose for it? Why? So anyway, interesting questions. Probably going to get more answers as the show goes on, I hope. And I think this would easily be definitely one of the top 3, let's say, productions from Marvel to date. And I'm including Spider-Man in that, even though I know they didn't do it. They're part of it though. Just because character development, the story, the only other comparisons I would think that were equally interesting and unique would be Taika Waititi, Thor Ragnarok. Those would be like as far as taking it to another level and kind of allowing the creator to create, the director to make the movie he envisions. I think these are going to be the best examples, and I hope Marvel or Disney takes more from this, allows directors and writers to do what they do instead of making movies and shows on committee. Mandalorian, again, the best thing to come out of Disney so far related to Star Wars. Their television shows, fantastic, all of them so far. So, and then the later Marvel films, in my opinion, some of them are fantastic, some of them were fun. Endgame was okay for me. It was fun. It had some cool stuff. I just felt like their way of stopping Thanos was kind of a cheap out, I guess. Using the whole time travel into the quantum realm, blah blah blah, get the infinite. I don't know. It was a bit convoluted and it didn't fit the actual storylines that went with the Infinity War or Infinity Stones or whatever comic run. I felt like they could have done better, but that's just me. So I'm really interested to see what the next phase of Marvel looks like, and so far, if these shows are as important as Marvel Studios says they are, we're off to a good start. So yeah, that's what I got, people. Thank you for checking this out. Appreciate you watching. Hopefully you go out and watch Loki. I think Disney Plus is $6.99 a month now, so I mean it's not like epically priced, and I believe you get a month or 2 free if you sign up if you're a first-time subscriber. So definitely do that. Again, Loki, Disney Plus. If you want to check out the podcast, if you're not already listening to the podcast, We are pretty much cross-platform, so anywhere you listen to a podcast, just check Mercurial Therapy Sessions. You'll find us. Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, etc. We're there. Google Podcasts, we're on there. If you're on the podcast right now listening, the YouTube channel, Mercurial Therapy Sessions. Try to recognize a pattern here. And then Instagram, Mercurial, or at Mercurial Therapy, Twitter.com/MercurialPod. And I'm sure people aren't interested, but Patreon.com/Mercurial Therapy. Got a $1 and $3 tier. It's just if you want more video content that includes like clips and things, so it would be an episode like this, except I would be able to insert parts from the show to kind of give you more examples or more music or whatever. Same with the podcast and behind the scenes stuff, because it's kind of embarrassing how I set up. I did sneak in a little clip of me getting ready to film. I don't know if anyone saw it, so I'm not going to tell you what episode it is, but I ended the episode video-wise with some technical difficulties I had, which I thought was kind of funny. So if you want to watch a guy embarrass himself while getting ready to film, you can catch it for $1. Alright, well, peace and love, everyone. Please go out and watch Loki. Give it good reviews. It's a fantastic show. I finished Gideon Falls, so I definitely will be talking about that. Jeff Lemire again. I have not watched any more Sweet Tooth yet. I don't know if I'm going to. I really, really don't like what they're doing with the show. If you watched my review or listened to it about episode 2, you will know why. I'll probably toss in one more episode just to see what happens, and then from there I'm pretty much wiped out on that. It's taking one of the most beloved comic series of all time for me and kind of flushing down the toilet in my eyes. So cinematically wise, the atmosphere, everything else is fine. I mean, it's not that it's a bad show, it's just not Sweet Tooth the comic, and I don't understand again why they bothered making a show that is essentially a child's version of a very adult-themed comic. I mean, it's essentially the story of the Holocaust and Exodus put together. That's the basic plot of Sweet Tooth. I mean, when you get down to literally the base, it is hybrids are treated in camps like they're inhuman, and they're looking to escape and get to the promised land. So it could be the pharaohs in Egypt. It's essentially the story of Exodus if you throw in a little bit of the Holocaust. That's what Sweet Tooth is, and it's just made to look nicer and more I guess child friendly by the art from Jeff Lemire. But part of me wonders if Robert Downey Jr.'s company even actually read the comic, or if they just saw the drawing and went, "Oh, Sweet Tooth, this looks cute." I don't know, but so far, but Loki. Anyway, thank you again. This Psychonaut signing out. Peace and love.